He's here with a warning for Americans heading into the fall about scams.
Last year, Americans reported losses to the FBI of $12.5 billion.
A$AP Rocky's verified Twitter account was hijacked in broad daylight. In minutes, hackers leaked Elon Musk's private number and racked up over 17,000 views in 10 minutes. If a global superstar with every safeguard can get hacked, what chance do the rest of us have? But that's just the start. In this countdown, you'll hear about a $230 million Bitcoin heist pulled off with a single phone call, Ponzi schemes that vanished with $4 billion, and more. Even billionaires and governments have fallen for scams so bold, they defy belief. Wait until you see how the world's richest and most powerful got fooled and lost fortunes. Malone Lam was just 20 years old, a Singaporean living in the US with a taste for fast cars and fast money. But he wasn't a Wall Street prodigy or a Silicon Valley founder. He was a social engineer, a scammer with the patience to study his prey and the nerve to strike when they least expected it. The target, a high net worth investor in Washington, D.C., with a digital wallet holding 4,100 Bitcoin, worth $230 million at the time. Recent investigations that were found suggest Mark Cuban was the victim. Was he? Well, Lam and his partner, Jean-Diel Serrano, didn't need to hack any code. They hacked the human. Masquerading as Google and Gemini support, they triggered panic with fake login alerts, then convinced the investor to hand over remote access to his computer. In minutes, the Bitcoin was gone. But Lam's real mistake wasn't the crime. It was the aftermath. He couldn't resist flaunting his new wealth. He bought at least 31 luxury cars, including a $3.4 million Pagani Huayra, a Lamborghini Revuelto, and a Mercedes-AMG GT Black Series. He rented mansions in Miami and LA, spent up to $1 million a night at clubs, and handed out Birkin bags to influencers like party favors. His Instagram was a highlight reel of excess. What Lam didn't realize was that every crypto transaction leaves a trail. Enter Zach XBT, the legendary blockchain investigator who's recovered over $200 million in stolen crypto. Zach XBT tracked Lam's spending, pieced together the puzzle, and handed the evidence to law enforcement. Malone Lam had the skills to steal millions, but his ego put him behind bars. But here's the question. If you suddenly had $230 million, would you be able to keep it a secret? Or would you, like Lam, be tempted to show the world what you'd done? In the end, it wasn't technology that caught him, it was human nature. And if you think that's the wildest way to lose a fortune, just wait, because the next scammer didn't just steal money, he built an entire global persona, fooling millions with nothing but style and swagger. Ramon Abbas grew up in Lagos, Nigeria, the son of a taxi driver and a bread seller. By his teens, he was hustling second-hand clothes from the trunk of his car, but Lagos was too small for his dreams. In the 2000s, as Nigeria's Yahoo boys pioneered online scams, Abbas saw his chance. He fled to Malaysia in 2014, rebranded as @hushpuppi on Instagram, and built a persona that dripped with luxury. Gucci, Fendi, Rolls-Royces, and penthouses with gold fixtures. He called himself the billionaire Gucci master, never revealing what he actually did for money. His 2.8 million followers saw only the highlight reel: $20,000 shopping sprees, private jets to Paris, and a closet tour that looked like an MTV Cribs episode. But behind the scenes, Abbas was running one of the world's most lucrative business email compromise (BEC) scams. He and his crew hacked into company emails, watched for big transactions, and sent fake invoices at just the right moment. The money, sometimes millions, was wired straight to Hushpuppi's accounts. He stole $922,000 from a New York law firm, attempted a 13 million euro heist from Malta's Bank of Valletta, and defrauded a Qatari businessman of $1.1 million. He even ran romance scams, building fake relationships online and extracting money for emergencies that never existed. In 2021 alone, the FBI says romance scams cost victims over $1 billion. But Abbas's downfall was his own Instagram. FBI agents were among his followers, tracking his every move. A birthday cake from Gucci helped them match his identity to a visa application. In June 2020, Dubai police raided his penthouse, seizing $40 million in cash, 13 luxury cars, and the email addresses of 2 million potential victims. He was extradited to the US, pled guilty, and was sentenced to over 11 years in prison. Pause for a moment. How many times have you scrolled past a luxury influencer and wondered, is this real? Hushpuppi's story is a warning. In the age of social media, the line between fame and infamy is razor thin. He built a persona and a prison out of other people's dreams. But what happens when the con artist isn't hiding in the shadows, but standing in the spotlight, hailed as the next financial genius? The next story shows how even the world's smartest investors can be swept up in a fantasy. Sam Bankman-Fried was the golden boy of crypto. With wild hair, a nerdy charm, and a reputation for genius, he built FTX into a $32 billion empire. Hedge funds, billionaires, and even governments lined up to invest. Temasek Holdings, Singapore's legendary state investor, spent 8 months on due diligence before putting $275 million into FTX. They believed in SBF's vision and his integrity, but behind the scenes, FTX and its sister firm, Alameda Research, were a house of cards. Billions in customer funds were funneled into risky trades, luxury real estate, and SBF's personal ambitions. FTX propped up its finances using its own token, FTT, as collateral, a classic Ponzi move. When the truth emerged in November 2022, it triggered a bank run. $6 billion in withdrawal requests in 72 hours. FTX collapsed, customers lost billions, and SBF was arrested, extradited, and sentenced to 25 years in prison. Temasek lost its entire $275 million investment, their largest write-down ever. Singaporeans and lawmakers were left asking, how could the world's most disciplined fund be fooled? What would you do if you were in charge of billions? Would you trust a 30-year-old with wild hair and a big idea, or would you demand proof? Even the smartest investors can be dazzled by charisma and hype. In the world of high-growth innovation, even the best due diligence can miss a well-crafted illusion. Still, not every scammer is after fame. Some want something bigger: power, influence, and a chance to rewrite the fate of an entire nation. The next case takes us into the heart of a scandal that shook a country to its core. Joe Low was born into privilege in Malaysia, but he wanted more than money. He wanted power. He used elite schools and social circles to build connections with Middle Eastern royals and heirs to global fortunes. His masterstroke, infiltrating Malaysia's 1MDB sovereign wealth fund as a shadowy advisor. In 2009, Low brokered a deal between 1MDB and PetroSaudi International, secretly siphoning $700 million into his own shell company. The scam ballooned into a global web of fake companies and complicit insiders, with billions more embezzled through fraudulent deals. Money meant for Malaysian schools and hospitals was laundered into luxury real estate, celebrity parties, and even Hollywood films. Low partied with Paris Hilton, dated Miranda Kerr, and gifted Leonardo DiCaprio a Picasso. He bought a $250 million super yacht, a $39 million Hollywood Hills mansion, and co-produced The Wolf of Wall Street with $100 million in laundered money. His 31st birthday party reportedly cost $10 to $12 million and featured Kim Kardashian and Jamie Foxx. As the 1MDB scandal exploded, Malaysia's prime minister was convicted and jailed, but Low vanished, reportedly undergoing plastic surgery and cycling through fake identities. In 2025, a decentralized manhunt launched online. WhereIsJoe.xyz offers crypto bounties for real intel on Low's whereabouts, with thousands of digital sleuths tracking his every move. Joe Low's story is a masterclass in how money, connections, and technology can buy time, silence, and even new identities. But as the internet's global swarm of bounty hunters closes in, even the world's most wanted white-collar criminal can't hide forever. While Joe Low vanished into the shadows, others simply walked away with billions, leaving behind nothing but empty promises and a trail gone cold. The next story is about a vanishing act so perfect, it left the world stunned. Amir and Reyes Kaji were two young South African brothers with a simple pitch: invest in AfriCrypt, their AI-powered Bitcoin trading platform, and watch your money grow. The returns, up to 10% per day, were too good to resist for South Africa's wealthy, celebrities, and even politicians. Behind the scenes, AfriCrypt was a classic Ponzi scheme. There was no trading, no AI, just investor deposits funneled into wallets controlled by the Kajis. Early payouts came from new deposits, not profits. As withdrawals mounted, the brothers staged a fake hacker attack, telling clients all funds were gone and urging them not to contact police. The Kajis flaunted their wealth, buying supercars, luxury homes, and attending exclusive parties. But when AfriCrypt collapsed in April 2021, the brothers disappeared. No flight records, no border crossings. Investigators later found they'd secured Vanuatu citizenship, giving them visa-free access to 130 countries and protection from extradition. Interpol issued red notices, but the brothers remain at large. AfriCrypt's $4 billion vanishing act is a stark warning. In the wild west of crypto, even the most promising platforms can be elaborate scams. With enough hype, fake tech, and a well-timed exit, you can disappear with billions, leaving investors and authorities with nothing but questions. And sometimes, the betrayal doesn't come from strangers or distant masterminds. It comes from the people you trust most. The next scam is a gut punch, showing how even the closest relationships can hide the deepest secrets. Ipe Mizuhara was more than just Shohei Ohtani's interpreter. He was his right hand, the man who managed his affairs as Ohtani became a global baseball superstar. But behind the scenes, Mizuhara was orchestrating a staggering betrayal. Over several years, Mizuhara siphoned nearly $17 million from Ohtani's bank account, exploiting his position to authorize transactions without Ohtani's knowledge. He impersonated Ohtani during phone calls with bank officials, facilitating unauthorized wire transfers to cover his gambling debts. The stolen money fueled Mizuhara's addiction to illegal sports betting, a practice strictly prohibited in California. Publicly, Mizuhara was the picture of loyalty. Privately, he was entangled in a web of lies. In June 2024, he pleaded guilty to bank fraud and filing a false tax return. By February 2025, he was sentenced to nearly 5 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $17 million in restitution to Ohtani, along with $1.1 million to the IRS. But not all scams are built on trust. Some are pure audacity, so bold, so outrageous, you'll wonder how anyone could fall for them. Up next, the man who sold a fantasy so convincing, it cost a bank nearly $250 million. Emmanuel Nwood was a Nigerian banking executive with a talent for deception. In the early 1990s, he and 5 accomplices posed as top Nigerian officials, targeting international banks with a bogus investment opportunity, funding a new international airport in Abuja. Using forged documents, business plans, and staged meetings in London, they convinced Nelson Sakaguchi, an executive at Banco Noroeste, that the deal was real, sweetening the offer with a $10 million commission. Over 3 years, Sakaguchi wired $242 million to accounts controlled by Nwood's team, who laundered the money through 17 banks in multiple countries. Instead of blowing the cash on yachts and parties, Nwood and his crew invested heavily in property and businesses, building quiet empires while sending fake progress reports to keep Sakaguchi convinced. The fraud unraveled in 1998 when a merger audit revealed a third of the bank's capital was missing. Sakaguchi confessed, triggering an international investigation. Nwood was eventually arrested, agreed to return $120 million, and paid a $10 million fine in exchange for a reduced sentence. He was sentenced to 25 years, but managed to bribe his way out after less than 2 years, recovering millions from his hidden assets. How many other too-good-to-be-true deals are hiding in plain sight, waiting to be exposed? And if you think only the old guard gets fooled, think again. The next scammer wasn't even old enough to drive, but he managed to outsmart thousands and turn memes into a fortune, all before his 16th birthday. Griffin was just 15, but he had the mindset of a hustler. After losing thousands to rug pulls and scams on the Solana blockchain, he decided to flip the script. Using Pump.fun, a platform that lets anyone launch a coin for just $3, Griffin started creating a series of meme coins, starting with names so brilliant you'd think he was a financial prodigy. Kid on Solana, Gen Z Quant, I'm Sorry, and Lucy. He live-streamed the launches to build hype and draw in the crowd. His strategy: buy up a large share of his own coin at launch, promote it live, and sell RUG, his tokens, as soon as the price pumped, leaving late investors holding worthless coins. In just 36 minutes, Griffin launched 3 coins and rugged them all and made $61,800 in profit. He kept going, ultimately netting $63,200 in under 2 hours. Griffin's antics went viral on X, Twitter, with clips of him celebrating his windfall and taunting investors who lost money. The crypto community was furious, doxing Griffin and his family, and even pumping the price of his first coin after he sold, just to make him regret selling too early. In a market built on attention and FOMO, the only real winners are those who get in first and know exactly when to cash out. Everyone else is just left holding the bag. But sometimes, the biggest scams aren't about new tech or viral hype. They're about exploiting the very foundations of a country's economy. The next story is a financial earthquake that changed a nation forever. Harshad Mehta was a small-town dreamer who became Mumbai's most famous stockbroker. He exploited loopholes in India's outdated banking system, using fake bank receipts and ready forward deals to siphon billions from banks into the stock market. He manipulated share prices, creating a self-fueling bubble that lured in everyday investors and made him a financial celebrity. Mehta flaunted his wealth with a fleet of luxury cars, including India's first Lexus LS 400 and a penthouse overlooking the Arabian Sea. He hosted lavish parties for Bollywood stars and politicians, wore gold-lined suits, and became a media darling. But journalist Sucheta Dalal exposed his web of fake documents and colluding bankers, triggering a market crash that wiped out billions in investor wealth. Authorities raided Mehta's properties, seizing cars, cash, and incriminating records. He was arrested and faced over 600 lawsuits. His rise and fall remain a cautionary tale, reminding us that when something looks too good to be true, it probably is. And finally, what happens when a scam is hiding in plain sight, wrapped in luxury and trust? The last story is a reminder that even the most glamorous facades can conceal the darkest secrets. P. Jiapeng and Pansuk Siriwipa were a young couple living large in Singapore. Pansuk, originally from Thailand, started out running small-scale scams in Bangkok. After meeting Pai, a Singaporean with big dreams and gambling debts, the two joined forces, married, and moved to Singapore to scale up their operation. In 2021, they launched Tradenation and Trade Luxury, companies that sold luxury watches and bags on a pre-order basis, requiring customers to pay in full upfront. They attracted buyers with prices 10 to 20% below market, positive reviews, influencer endorsements, and even a physical store to appear legitimate. Behind the scenes, it was a classic Ponzi scheme. New payments were used to fulfill earlier orders, and as debts mounted, they kept accepting pre-orders even when they knew they couldn't deliver. The couple flaunted their ill-gotten wealth, flying private jets, buying luxury cars, and living in one of Singapore's wealthiest neighborhoods. By mid-2022, complaints from customers who never received their goods piled up, and the scam unraveled. Over 180 police reports were filed, with losses totaling more than 32 million Singapore dollars. Both were arrested and had their passports impounded. But in July 2022, they pulled off a daring escape, hiding in a lorry's container to flee Singapore for Malaysia. After a month on the run, they were arrested in Johor Bahru and extradited back to Singapore. Their $32 million scam, built on trust and luxury, shows how even the most glamorous lifestyles can hide calculated fraud, and that, eventually, the law catches up. So what do all these stories have in common? They're not just about money, they're about trust, ambition, and the lengths people will go to chase a dream or cover a lie. But there's one lesson that ties them all together. From hacked Twitter accounts to billion-dollar Ponzi schemes, these stories prove that wealth and status are no shield against deception. The rich may have more to lose and more protection. They're just as vulnerable to the right con at the right time. In a world where technology moves faster than the law and where trust can be weaponized, the only real defense is vigilance. So the next time you see a celebrity's account go rogue, or a new investment promising the moon, remember, if it can happen to A$AP Rocky, to Mark Cuban, to billionaires, to governments, it can happen to anyone. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and never forget, the greatest scams are the ones you never see coming. For more deep dives into the fascinating lives of the rich, famous, and infamous, click on the next video here. Behind every fortune is a story worth telling or worth exposing. See you on the other one.